Well, first up this evening, the big story at the moment in Karnataka. The state cabinet special meeting is on as we speak to discuss the findings of the decade-old socio-economic survey. The meeting is on in the midst of sharp reactions to that survey from a large section of the Congress's Lingayat and Vokkaliga MLAs. Over 55 of the Congress's 137 MLAs are from the two dominant blocks of Karnataka's polity, and there is a demand to sidestep the survey from the religious and political leadership of the two communities. Several of the BJP leaders too against that survey. The cabinet could consider negating the issue by referring the report to a subcommittee and thereby delaying any action on it further. The 2015 survey has been a politically delicate issue as the survey findings could threaten the status quo in the state's power equations. Deputy Chief Minister D.K. Shivakumar, remember, Shivakumar belongs to the OBC Vokkaliga caste and Chief Minister Siddaramaiah represents the Ahinda Social Coalition, which is a counter to the power of the Vokkaligas and the Lingayat sect in the state. I believe that cabinet meeting has come to a close as we speak at the moment. My colleague Deepak Bupanna, who's been tracking that very closely, joins me live right now. Deepak, tell me the latest you're hearing after that cabinet meet comes to an end, which has come to a close now.
Well, a very important update. The caste census, of course, was debated. It was debated in detail, but then there was no consensus as such. No final decision has been taken. The ministers have been told to give their answers in detail to the Chief Minister in the next meeting. When is this meeting going to happen? There's no clarity on that as well. I'm going to, of course, ask these questions straight to one of the cabinet ministers who's just stepped out in just a moment. And even as we speak, there are some cabinet ministers who are still inside. The biggest question here was how will the Vokkaliga MLAs, or rather the ministers, really react, and how will the Lingayat ministers react? I'm going to, in fact, take this question straight to the Transport Minister, Mr. Ramlinga Reddy. Sir, thank you for speaking to NDTV. Could you tell us what happened in this cabinet meeting? Because, there was a lot, being spoken about how the Vokkaliga ministers, how the Lingayat ministers in particular will address the issues that their communities have been raising or the concerns that they've been flagging on.
There are all community ministers are there in the cabinet. Not Vokkaliga, Lingayat like that. I
agree, but it was your community and your leaders who are flagging these concerns.
For MLAs or MPs, everybody, all community people will vote. But today, what happened? No, a Chief Minister told us, as means ministers, to give our opinion in writing.
Then what happened today, sir? Because the meeting started at 4:30. We're now close to 7. 2.5 hours that you all sat and deliberated. What was the discussion about? Because only subject today was
the cabinet. There must have been something important.
Okay, so there was something that happened that you're saying that cannot be revealed right now.
We can't reveal.
Okay, interesting. Well, that is an interesting statement coming to the fore from the Transport Minister, Mr. Ramlinga Reddy, who goes on to exclusively tell NDTV that there were discussions about the caste census, but he's not in a position now to really inform about the same. So that means that there were some fireworks in all possibility, and that's probably the safest answer that he could come up with, that the ministers have been asked to come back again to point out their issues, probably even give it in writing. Back to you.
Deepak, I wish if you could put that question across to someone who was there on the cabinet meet. Can they confirm what's been reported about the details of that socio-economic survey? Because several academics have pointed out that what's being reported by us and by every other publication virtually are actually leaked contents of that report, not been authentically verified. So if you could give us some insight to that before we go to our special panel this evening. It seems to me that the Karnataka government seems to have delayed further action on a decade-old report, which is already long delayed.
Mr. Ramlinga Reddy is the only one who's actually walked out. I'm monitoring the door. You can see some activity there. And if there was somebody else, I would, of course, ask this question because it is very pertinent. For the last few years, there have been a lot of deliberations about, the numbers, especially of the Vokkaligas and the Lingayats, and the report allegedly showing that their numbers have dropped in the last few years, especially from 2015 when the survey was actually conducted. This was where the question marks arose. This is where the community seers and leaders leaders started to say, well, this report was not done scientifically. Many of them started to question why their house nobody had visited. They said that according to them, the numbers of their community was much larger. So whether these question marks were actually there or whether raised really in the cabinet, that's a very important question. We'll of course try and ask a few more cabinet ministers as they now step out of the Vidhan Sabha.
Okay. Okay, you get in there, Deepak. You're there at the Vidhan Sabha. Obviously, there will be some ministers you could go and catch their reactions to this from. We'll go across to our special panel, but right, go ahead, Deepak.
Well, I am trying to get in a reaction from Mr. R.B. Timapur here, Minister for Excise. He doesn't seem to be in a mood to answer. Santosh Lad is here. I tried to get in an opinion from him as well. Well,
as of I am concerned now, next week the same matter will be continued to the cabinet.
What has been decided, sir? What has been decided? Any decision as of now?
Listen, my dear friends, the entire process, when you hear it, the entire process, the way it has been done, when you hear it from the minister, you will understand how much parameters is been considered, how they have gone to house, how many households they have gone. All those details will be spoken by the concerned minister. Hear me out. As of now, what question you are asking me, in now the cabinet, the same cabinet will be again forwarded for the next week. Again, the discussion.
Why again, sir? In 2.5 hours, were you able to not discuss completely, or why again? I'm just trying to understand, sir. Nothing else.
Because it's a larger issue.
Okay.
It's a larger issue. So have patience. Why? What? There's nothing like that. Because it still takes a lot of discussion to happen. It is going to take with the next week.
Will you be able to confirm that all the leaked information that has been coming out?
All the ministers had a chance to
Yes,
express
sir.
their opinion.
Even next week also we are going to speak about
A
it.
special cabinet or a regular cabinet?
going to be regular cabinet.
So one last question. There was a lot of leaked information in the last 6-7 years coming out about the caste census report. What are the findings of the report? Was that something that was made public today?
When minister is going to come and give you details, you'll be zapped. You'll be surprised. The detailing, the way it has gone, how they have gone to house, who has signed, every person, how many houses he's been appointed, what all the parameters they have taken, you know, who is having house, who is not having house, who is disabled, all the details is there. Just hold on for some time.
Were there objections raised as well, sir?
There is absolutely no objection from anybody.
No objections from anybody. That was
Absolutely
Minister
no
Santosh Lad
objection.
once again speaking there and saying there were no objections.
Right, Deepak, you're right. Minister saying no objections from anybody, at least no objections in public, but obviously the objections we've heard over the last few days. We'll let you go and get more reactions there, Deepak. We have a special panel lined up this evening as well. We'll keep going back to Deepak as and when he gets more information and reactions from there. But for the moment, nothing concrete coming out of that cabinet meet as expected. Joining me this evening, Lavanya Balal Jain of the Congress Party, Vijay Prasad of the Bharatiya Janata Party. I have with me Professor Chandan Gowda, who has studied Karnataka's caste very closely, senior journalist R.K. Upadhyay, who's tracked Karnataka politics for several decades. Thanks to all four of you for joining us. Let me get quick political reaction, starting with you, Lavanya Balal. Another delaying tactic, because it's a very, very potent, explosive issue to take any decision on. The cabinet will meet again, we are told, to discuss this matter further.
Good evening. It's wonderful to be back on your show. I heard the Labour Minister, Santosh Lad saying that we will be meeting once again to discuss this further. And I think it is very prudent, because if it is such a sensitive issue like everybody is talking about, everybody's point of view must be taken into consideration and no one can be left behind. I've also heard that this survey, when I was part of one of these meetings 3 days ago, I heard there are multiple parameters that the survey had to, be conducted. There were more than 50 parameters that they had to check. And the people who have done the survey are also people who work with the union government. So I'm looking forward to this caste census be, released in Karnataka and essential changes being changed. As far as differences of opinion, I have seen multiple leaders of multiple communities speaking up, and I think it is correct on their part to speak up and to ensure that the community is well represented represented and the community's fears are heard by the government. That's absolutely correct. I think on part of those leaders, be it the leaders from Congress, JDS, or BJP.
The only problem, Lavanya, is that we've been hearing this conversation go on for a decade now. It finally comes before the cabinet to get delayed further. Vijay Prasad, the BJP also in a bind as far as this report is concerned.
Viram, just for your information, my sources say the meeting has been called off and has been postponed for the next week. No decision has been taken on the this caste survey or the what we call it as
That's
caste
right. That's
census,
exactly what we are
Congress
reporting. That's exactly what we are reporting,
now,
Vijay, that the cabinet meet has concluded. Let me just put the facts here. The cabinet meet has concluded. We were told by Minister for Labour Santosh Lad that next week they will reconvene to discuss the matter. The Chief Minister has asked all the ministers to come up with their points and discuss the issue again.
Yeah, this shows the commitment, Veera. See, this so-called caste survey is nothing more than a politically motivated document. It is riddled with manipulated figures designed to serve a narrow agenda, appeasement agenda. Labeling it as a caste-based exercise is misleading. What it truly appears to be is a deliberate attempt to inflate the numbers of one particular community, in this case Muslims, while undermining the representation and rights of others. What I would like to know is government preparing the ground to dilute or hijack the reservation benefits given to certain groups by falsely portraying a demographic shift? Is this survey is being projected as the final and accurate? It deserves nothing less than outright rejection, Veera. It should be scrapped immediately in the interest of truth, fairness, and national unity. If you see the caste survey, even before it is released, if you can see more than the BJP, it is the Congress's leader who are dead against this survey, because if you see this, they are calling it as a bogus survey or bogus survey or the bogus caste census. See here, some of the Lingayat Swamiji says through this caste survey or caste census. It is a lot of unfairness to the Lingayats. For the
okay, Vijay,
SCs,
you made a point. I think the core point you're making is that you need to debunk the survey. I'll come back to you, but Professor Chandan Gowda and R.K. Upadhyay, Lavanya, I know you want to make a point to this. We have time on the show, but let me get Professor Chandan Gowda and R.K. Upadhyay into this conversation. Professor Chandan Gowda, irrespective of who conducts the survey, can we ever have credible non-contested numbers on the basis of which we can have a substantial debate on issues of enormous social importance? Because a lot of the numbers that are floating around still in the realm of myth and projections rather than one of concrete fact.
The Indian census operations are among the best in the world. They have been extremely well trained. And I would imagine the ones who did the census, even in the state, were also very well trained and coached to it. I think the quality of data is very, very high. It's been cross-checked by BEL and the other organizations involved in it. The controversy is about the grouping of subcastes and castes. That is something else. And I wish there was no confusion on that. But I think when we see the report, some of the confusion will be cleared up. Be that as it may, the National Commission for Backward Classes Act 1993 mandates that the backward class list be revised every 10 years. And that revision can happen only if there's a caste census or socioeconomic census of all castes taken. Right now, the general census takes the socioeconomic data for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and at the religious level, but not at the caste level. I frankly don't see what the huge objection can be. In fact, one should want to know more about how precisely we are doing at the caste level along all these indices, socially, educationally, gender, literacy, these things that everyone cares about. It's unfortunate it's being politicized. In fact, it would have saved a lot of money if the central government had just done it in the national census itself, because it's just an additional column. And for Telangana and Bihar and Karnataka to have their own separate caste census, ought not to have been the case. Be that as it may, I think the census data that has been collected here is something to look forward to. Outside of these sorts of concerns about how the subcastes have been grouped and not grouped. But a quick response to my co-panelist, the data for the Muslims in Karnataka is more or less continuous with the 2011 census data. So I don't think the figures have been inflated, Veera. We need to be clear about these things. The 2011 data is public.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Important point that you make there from an academic point of view in terms of consistency with past data. Ramakrishna Upadhyay, coming to the political exchange over this, put that into context, A, for us, both from the power equations point of view in the state, and also B, as Chandan Gowda is pointing out, is a substantial debate on issue that needs to be debated being buried in the political noise.
Raghav, I think from what we hear, there has been a lot of strong opposition to the way the government is pushing through this report. It's obvious the very fact that the chief minister asked ministers to give individually their opinions. See, we were expecting some sort of a going forward. I mean, at least some committee, a special committee headed by the chief secretary and some experts to look into this. But obviously, it has been stuck at the level of the ministers taking objections to the numbers that have been put out. There has been vast complaints about this survey itself, and which is already 11 years old, and then the numbers put out of various communities. So nobody is accepting it. I mean, the Vakaligas, the Lingayas, the other castes, the Brahmins, nobody is accepting the figures. Everybody is saying that we have been underrepresented or misrepresented. So that being the case, I think probably there will be a demand that to have a look at these numbers going to certain constituencies, a sample survey of how the numbers have been arrived at, and if there is even a 5% problem with the numbers, I think a resurvey has to be done. So that is what I think the ministers are pushing for. They know that Siddaramaiah is wants it to be done during his term. That is probably he wants it even before he hands over the power to Shiv Kumar, if at all that if it comes to that. So, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy because
sorry, Ramakrishna Upadhyay, I'm just going to ask you another question. Why do you say that Siddaramaiah is keen to have this come out? Is there a political reason for it, or is the reason purely to understand the socio-economic realities of Karnataka? Why would you say that?
Now, of course, you see, look at the numbers that have been put out. The OBCs have been, reservations has gone up according to this from 32% to 51%, whereas the Lingayats and Vakaligas will get only a marginal increase. And look at their numbers. I mean, even going by the numbers given by this report, 61 lakhs is the Vakaligas and 66 lakhs is the Lingayats. And they're disputing it. They're saying that we are more than 1 crore each. And whereas they get, their reservation increase, Vakaligas get from 4% to 7%, Lingayats from 4% to 8%, the OBC reservation total goes up to 51%, and then Kurubas, which Siddaramaiah represents, get 12% reservation. So they see an obvious bias in this, and I think it's not going to be easy for him to push it because and he's also given a special attention to the Kurubas. He has moved them from OBC to most OBCs, I mean, most backward classes, so that they enjoy the maximum benefit out of it. So these are all, I think,
you're making an important point.
Gone into in much detail.
You're making a very important point about the social realities, the caste realities, the political realities that stem out of that. Vijay Prasad, is it easier for the BJP primarily to take a stand on this issue because you do not have a large social coalition as your base in the state, and rather seem to be consolidating between the top 2 sect and caste in the state?
Veera, the survey, whatever you name it as, it has to be in a most scientific way. Right from the beginning, I am telling the 10-year-old story. Right from the day they started, there is opposition for this survey, what they have done. Right from the beginning, 10 years back. And n number of people whom we meet and whom we meet on the streets, when we ask them, especially you take a Bangalore as the example, when we meet them and we ask, did any enumerators come visit your house and did the survey or census? N number of people, majority of them saying no. So when majority of the people are saying no, how can you say this is the most scientific, this is the most accurate? On what basis did you do this survey? And at the same time, many people, especially take Vishwakarma, the prominent leader is saying we are not 15 lakhs. In for this scheduled tribe, 180 subcaste has been added. Who are they? What is the basis?
Okay.
And if you see these numbers, the way they have been done, a person with no knowledge about the socio-economic aspects of the community, they have, and a low-level people, they have gotten into this activity and they have done this survey. So that means,
Okay,
to say, just 10 seconds, Veera. See, that means to say this government is not committed to the caste survey or caste census, what they are talking
Lavanya
about.
Balal, respond to that. Lavanya Balal, respond to what Vijay Prasad is saying. Given that there is so much opposition from within the Congress itself, what's the reason to bring it up? The party first need to put a united front on this issue. Go ahead, Lavanya Balal.
See, I think the action by the current government, headed by Siddaramaiah, is ample enough proof that we are committed to the caste census survey. The BJP has not done that. No. The coalition government, which then existed, didn't do that. I would like to tell both the BJP spokesperson and Upadhyaya sir that both of you have been speaking of numbers. I do not know where you got the numbers because the official numbers has not been released by the government. And what little I heard in the discussion is the numbers were very different from the numbers that you are talking here. So I would suggest everybody to hold their horses and not react before the government releases the numbers, because it would be misconstruing and misleading to do that. Also, I would like to say the Labour Minister said, one second, sir, let me finish. Sir, let me finish.
No, hang on. All of you need to hang on now because I'm going to play out for you Minister Priyank Kharge's response to my colleague Deepak Bopanna. Let's listen into that before we come back here.
What was the main decision today that was taken? Any decision in particular?
It's like I said, the report is voluminous. Okay. It will take time for us to review. It will take time for us to come to a conclusion. But as there are many rumors, nobody is opposed to it. Everybody is for the upliftment of the backward classes, SCs, STs, and
many were contemplating if there will be fireworks inside this cabinet meeting. So there was nothing you're saying.
Absolutely no fireworks.
So next cabinet, what will be discussed, sir?
Let us see. We have to still review it. Okay. We have just got the report 4-5 days back.
So last question. Some apprehensions that communities had that their numbers are dwindling.
Every community's apprehensions will be addressed in due course of time.
Minister after minister, no clarity on what next except that they'll discuss it further. I have the last 60 seconds left. Chandan Gowda, I'm just going to give you 30 seconds. Do you fear that the entire exercise could eventually get wasted because there are strong political forces which don't want to accept what the survey has found?
Veera, I don't believe so. It really depends on how open the next round of discussions will be. Many communities will have legitimate objections. The committee will have to have responses to them. And I don't think they're irresolvable issues. See, the Panchamasalis, for example, who are 15% of Lingayats, have chosen not to identify themselves as Lingayats. Now, do you respect their wishes and keep them out and still count them as Lingayats for political reasons in terms of calculating births and tickets? You could do that. In America, when they say whites, the category whites includes Hispanics as well as people from the Middle East and North Africa who are separate, who want to be called as separate, but they're counted as whites. So I have a feeling we may be headed that way, because if the Panchamasalis say we do not want to be Lingayats, we can't say you have to be, right? So you'll have to go about it in a very different way. It's a very complex exercise. But I don't think it's a dead-end based exercise.
Can I make a point?
Right. There are deeper caste realities that you're making up. I'm really sorry, R.K. Upadhyay. I really wish I could have come to you last for a point.
Why can't the government
go
make
ahead, 10
public?
seconds.
Why can't they make it public? Should be in the public domain. The discussion has to happen.
I need to step in. 10 seconds.
All right, the point's taken. Why can't the government make the report public and just keep discussing it before cabinet meet after cabinet meet is the question you're raising? We'll keep our focus on this issue, but unfortunately we've run completely out of time on the Southern View this evening. News and updates continue right here on NDTV. Thanks for watching.